So I'm sure that everybody in this room especially has heard that podcasting is going through this boom. I had I found 2 data points on that this last week that I bet you haven't heard. I got calls from 2 different people who want to go into the podcasting business. One of them was Malcolm Gladwell. You know who that is? Yeah, like one of the most popular journalists in the world. And the other was Jerry Lewis, who is 90 years old, and his reps wanted to know how much money they could make. And I just thought, like, okay, that will be good to make podcasts safe for old people. That will be a good thing for podcasting. Basically, the podcast boom took off in August of 2014, two falls ago. And 2 things made it happen. One was Serial, that there hadn't been a podcast that was simply that popular. Serial was this worldwide phenomenon. And then the other thing that happened is that Apple put onto the iPhone, made it standard in the iOS that there would be a podcast app. And up until then, it was just like people were just like, how do I get one of these things? Like, what do I do? I remember when Serial premiered, because people kept asking us, like, how do I hear it? I went onto The Tonight Show and played a video of my 88-year-old neighbor, Mary Ahern, showing all the altacockers in the audience, like, how to download a podcast and listen to them, because she does herself. And just to talk about, like, what the appeal is, I think a lot of the appeal, I think some podcasts are like a club. I think they're like radio made for a very select audience. Yesterday I went into the iTunes store and I counted 19 different Game of Thrones podcasts, all of them doing summaries, recapping the latest Game of Thrones episodes. And I can't imagine that the audience is so big for those. Those are probably in the tens of thousands each. Political podcasts are out there, smart people sitting around gabbing. Audience, again, probably usually in the tens of thousands. Slate and the New York Times are in that arena. There are sports podcasts. I don't know much about those numbers because that's not my world. Comedy podcasts are some of the most popular podcasts out there. And that brings me to what I believe are the shows with the biggest audience. And these are shows that are what this conference today is about. These are shows that are story. They're basically narrative story. That is our show, This American Life. That's Serial. That's Radiolab. That's Invisibilia. And I think the reason why this is the big category is just a testament to, like, we like stories as a species. Like, stories are it's really satisfying to have something to listen to that pulls you in. You want to find out what happens, characters to relate to, funny moments, emotional moments. And our theory is it's TV. Like the story podcasts, we feel like we are competing with television. It's television when it works. It's as good, I think, as the best TV, as good as any great series. And you care, you want to find out what will happen. And you listen to the entire episode front to back so you can hear what happens. It's television, except you can consume it in all kinds of places that you can't consume TV. And Serial, in fact, you guys have heard Serial? Yes? I mean, it was designed from the ground up as an experiment to compete with television. Basically, the senior producer of Serial, our coworker Julie Snyder, her thought was, like, what is the most popular thing in the culture right now? And obviously, it's the TV shows that we all, like, binge watch. And she was like, well, can you make a piece of journalism, a true story, that does the same thing that an HBO series does or a Netflix series does, basically hooks people in at the beginning with a premise and characters and a situation and suspense about what's going to happen next, and get people to basically download an entire 12 episodes, which is just one story? And of course, the answer is yes. Serial told one story over 12 episodes in the first season. And the design of the show is like TV, including a Previously On. Now, and I would say it feels like the ad industry has not totally understood, like, what we are or how to engage with us. Right now, there have been a couple of big brands that have kind of sort of dipped their toes into podcasts. CVS and Ford have tried a little bit with ad buys, but most of the ad buys, and we're doing great, I have to say, but most of the ad buys are direct response. A lot of Squarespace, a lot of MailChimp, and a lot of story, a lot of people in the story business, a lot of, like a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows, because they can time around when their stuff is going to be released and talk to an audience where the stories have the same kind of feeling as the people who they believe will be watching their shows. And it seems like within the next year, the technology is going to exist to tell advertisers not just how many downloads we've done, but whether people actually heard the episodes and heard the ads. But even without that data, we know that listeners have an attachment to these shows. Like, even the story shows, people treat them like their club, and they have an attachment to them because of that. There's like a loyalty because of that. Like, there's really, like, the ads connect with people in a way that I think few things that you can buy connect. Our direct response advertisers do great with us. And again, that's kind of true across the board. On some shows, again, podcasts for beginners, the hosts will personally talk about the products, they'll talk about the brands, they'll talk them up. There's one great company called Gimlet Media that when you buy on any other podcasts like Reply All and The Mystery Show and Startup, which are wonderful shows, they do custom content for the brand as part of whatever podcast you're in that has the tone of the podcast that they will make for the brand. They like working with brands to do that. As an example, I would just say the season 1 sponsor on Serial was MailChimp. And each episode began with this thing that we manufactured for MailChimp ourselves.
Support for Serial comes from MailChimp.
From MailChimp.
Chimp.
More than 7 million businesses around the world
use a MailChimp
To send emails, newsletters, and deliver high fives.
MailChimp. Send better email.
Very nice.
I use MailChimp.
You do.
I love it.
So we made that ourselves. We just kind of went out on the street and got that Vox. And MailChimp and MailChimp became this meme. And as Serial got popular, people were constantly in the press, on Twitter. People were mentioning MailChimp, joking about MailChimp and MailChimp. At one point, MailChimp actually had to register the domain name MailChimp because so many people were going to mailchimp.com just to see what was there. They offered MailChimp merch, special MailChimp merch. And people would have it in the writing. My very favorite use of it was somebody was writing about the series, and the whole thing began with the writer describing sitting down with her boyfriend for brunch, and the boyfriend saying, "I figured out who killed that girl on Serial." She's like, "Who?" He's like, "MailChimp." And I think it's just like it's sort of MailChimp, got a lovely little thing in all of that and was associated with Serial through its success. And I think a consumer brand could do something like this. So anyway, that is my message to you. Thank you for having me. Lovely to be here with you.